Welcome to Patriot's Lament right here on KFAR Local Talk Radio. I am Steve Floyd, the monkey behind the machinery. Joining me here in the studio today, we've got Josh Bennett from Bighorn Enterprises. We've got his brother Aaron Bennett from Far North Tactical, one of those prep stores. We'll have more on that later. FBI is watching you. Of course, they're watching all of us, but that's entirely beside the point. And here to help campaign for our liberty is Dave Yeasel from the Fairbanks Campaign for Liberty. All right, gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steve. You didn't have to say that Aaron was my brother, though, did you?
Well, people might have put the two together, with the last name of Bennett, but
Yeah, that's just because they haven't seen us. There's no way I'm that ugly.
All right, I'm going to stay out of this before I get sucked into a swirling vortex of insults. How about that? Gentlemen, what is the main topic today?
The government sucks.
Okay, but that's kind of the topic every week. Oh. But I mean, for today specifically, we've got C-SPAN on. We're watching for Ron Paul to be speaking here shortly, and if we can get that up, where we might just break away to hear the comments from Ron Paul at any moment. But other than that, I mean, we've got the stuff going on with the protester that was arrested for TSA because he dared to point out the Fourth Amendment to them. Of course, the way he did it is probably the reason why he got arrested, but
it was pointed out in nudity.
Right. He had the Fourth Amendment written on his body, so that when he actually got stripped all the way down to his skin, the words of the Fourth Amendment were revealed for people to see. And the Fourth Amendment, in case anybody has gone to public school and they don't know what the Fourth Amendment is, that's the one that is supposed to guarantee us not to have our unreasonable search and seizure. Yeah.
Without cause.
Well, and you're supposed to get a judge basically or some form of agreement that there is a reasonable suspicion that this is something that we do have a probable cause to go and search this person or these premises.
Right. You have to have an accuser, basically. I think two. Well, an affidavit before a judge, and the judge is supposed to look at it and see whether there's reasonable cause or not.
Right.
So, obviously, Congress has decided there's reasonable cause to search us all.
Mm-hmm. But only if we're flying an airplane.
To be continued. For now.
Yeah, actually, there was a guest on the Peter Schiff radio show this week who writes all these books talking about how great the FBI is. He writes like these fiction books. And Peter was asking him about the wiretapping law, and because this guy was saying, the Patriot Act did this great, did some stuff that we shouldn't have done, but it did some good stuff. Like if the FBI wants to wiretap somebody, they used to have to get a different, they have to get approval for each wiretap on each phone number. Now they don't have to do that anymore, and that's terrific because now they can track people a lot more easily, right? They don't have to. If somebody changes a phone or buys a prepaid phone, they can just track them. And so Peter asked him, so if some guy calls me and you think he's going to call me, but you don't know his number, does that law give you the right to tap my phone? And the guy was like, well, yeah. And he's like, well, that's a pretty raw deal. So they can pretty much tap anybody's phone they want under that. If they get one judge to say you can tap this one guy, you can pretty much tap anybody's phone because you can say, well, we suspect this guy is going to call 300 million Americans.
It's interesting that the 2 hours that law lapsed here this last spring, it's hard to believe that we weren't attacked in that time, like we were told we were going to be if we didn't reinstitute the Patriot Act.
No, wait. These are the same people who told us that we weren't going to have our credit downgraded if we only raised the debt ceiling.
Right. I heard Kerry today griping that if it wasn't for the Tea Party, we would have got $4 trillion. It would have been raised to $4 to $4.5 trillion. Instead, they only got $2.5, and they spend it in one day.
So then, could it stand to reason that if it hadn't been for the Tea Party, we would have been downgraded to junk status?
That would have been better.
That would have been more truthful. Yeah, there's this. He gave me this little blurb, which many people probably saw in the news, where Michael Moore is calling for the S&P guys to be arrested for causing, irrevocable emotional damage to the markets by downgrading to AA+.
And make sure that I read that story correctly before I gave it to you. They actually, Michael Moore is advising the president that he go out and arrest the head of Standard & Poor's for daring to downgrade the United States.
Well, he's not the only one. He's not the only one calling for that. It's being called financial terrorism, which is a new thing under the Patriot Act also, which I guess is not new. It's almost a decade old.
Wow.
Yeah, anyway.
It is.
So, but they should be arrested for a different reason. They should be arrested for not downgrading it to junk status. I mean, they should be arrested for financial fraud, for being bought off, basically. They maintain AAA status of Bernie Madoff all the way through 2008, right? And they're doing the same thing with the U.S. government here, which is an even bigger Ponzi scheme. So Michael Moore's right for the wrong reasons.
I'm just, let me savor that for just a moment. You just said Michael Moore is right. Thank you.
Record that.
It's recorded. Everything that we say on this is not only recorded but streamed live across the internet for anyone, anywhere to listen to. Of course,
can and will be used against you.
It doesn't matter because they don't need to actually listen to the show to listen to us. They can just tap our phones or whatever else. I'm looking at what's going on right now, and I hear an awful lot of people saying that, well, maybe the groups like the Oath Keepers will help us out, except that the Oath Keepers have been put on a terrorist watch list, and now they've expanded that. Do I understand correctly that they're actually putting anybody on a terrorist watch list who's even preparing for possible disasters, even by getting canned food in their house? Am I reading that right?
Any long-term storage food of any kind constitutes being put on a terrorist watch list. Things like matches, waterproof matches, not just regular ones. They got to be waterproof to be a terrorist.
No, tell me where this is coming from. I saw that on freerepublic.com, and I saw an update from the Oath Keepers, actually.
FBI report. It's going out to everyone that they know of that has a surplus store.
So they're asking
going to all FFL dealers also.
So they're asking anybody who deals in firearms or anybody who deals in basically surplus store stuff, the kind of stuff like what you do at Far North Tactical. They're asking you to do what, Aaron?
But they're asking guys like me to profile and turn in people that buy high-capacity magazines, bipods, and tripods. The list is pretty odd, that's for sure.
People that use cash.
It encompasses just about anybody. People that use cash, people that use credit cards that aren't in their names, people that aren't sure exactly what it is they're buying, people that say things that are anti-continuity of government, people that express religious views, things of that nature.
Whoa, back up. People who express religious views?
Well, sure. Christians are terrorists.
Well,
get on the boat.
I mean, I can see.
Get on the train.
I can see.
Get on the train now.
If somebody is advocating for the end of the world and let's bring it on now, I mean, I could see maybe putting them on the on a terrorist watch list.
Oh, gas masks are also on the list. So the next time something happens in Japan, don't go get a gas mask because you'll be on a watch list.
All right, now
MREs are on there, aren't they?
Oh yeah.
And they're actually asking them to somehow co-opt their ID and make a copy of it and turn it into the FBI for any of those reasons, any of those suspicious reasons.
Now, you guys know me, and you know that I don't buy into the conspiracy theory stuff. I like to encourage you when you do because I think it's funny. But other than that, you know I don't buy into it. I've had too much experience doing human intelligence collection. You cannot have a conspiracy beyond 3 people before it starts to fall apart and somebody starts yakking about it. So I don't see a conspiracy behind every door. However, I do see some serious problems here because it seems to me that part of the intent in this is to scare people away from being prepared so that they're not going to go down to the store and get the things like long-term storage food or water pellets, iodine pellets, or anything else that might end up, I don't want to be on a watch list. It might scare them away from doing that so that if there ever is a crisis, the only place that people have to turn is the government for help.
Isn't the real issue, Steve, not necessarily being on a watch list, but just the fact that they're pushing on us that patriotism is absolute obedience to the state?
Isn't that what patriotism always is?
If you're in Nazi Germany, I thought patriotism was absolute obedience to the individual's liberties.
Well, okay.
The real problem, the only problem I see with this isn't the fact that it has anything to do with us being more safe. They're asking for us to profile people that have an anti-government viewpoint. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Or that they assume have.
Right. So I guess the real problem is obviously, I mean, that's no different than what Nazi Germany did. That's no different than what Russia did. They absolute demand obedience to the state and continuity of government. Anything outside of that is anti-patriotic and deserving of death. Isn't that what this is coming down to?
It certainly looks that way, and obviously I don't want to be, I don't want to be alarmist at all. However, I also don't want to give in to fear. I don't want to have somebody scare me away from being prepared because they might put me on a watch list. You know what? Let them go ahead and watch me. I'm going to go down to the store and get the stuff that I need so that when things fall apart, then my family's not going to be starving and my family's not going to have to go and knock on the government store and say, please feed me.
Steve, I bet that 6 million Jews would have wished somebody would have been a freaking alarmist.
Paul Revere was an alarmist.
He did. He
He
literally sounded the alarm. You're right.
At what point do you become an alarmist? At what point do you start to worry?
Well, that's why we're in the point where we are, because we have, not pointing at you, but overall general complacency. That's exactly what it is. It's complacency. No one wants to be the whack job. No one wants to be the guy that everyone goes, ooh, look at him. He's weird. He believes in conspiracies. Isn't the Federal Reserve a conspiracy? Dave, would you say the Federal Reserve? That is a conspiracy. Yeah. They took away our constitutional money, our rightful money, and they loan money back to our government at debt, compounding interest. That's a conspiracy. We are $16 trillion in debt. Is that not a conspiracy?
Yeah,
every time we use that dollar, we are in more debt. Every time you use a Federal Reserve note, it's more debt.
If I may, Josh, I just wanted to point out something, because when you use terms like 14 or 16 trillion dollars, I think most people just it goes off into the ether, and people don't understand how much money that really is, because you cannot conceive of that much money in our limited household budgets.
A billion is 1,000 millions. A trillion is 1,000 billions.
Let me break it down into the perspective of a household. I've got the actual ratio here. If the U.S. government was a family that was making $58,000 a year, which that is more than I make, that's more than my family brings in, then that family would be spending $75,000 a year with $327,000 in credit card debt. They're currently proposing big spending cuts to reduce their spending down to $72,000 a year. That's a big thing. I see up there on C-SPAN, it looks like Ron Paul is getting ready to speak, and we've also got some phone calls coming in, 458-TALK. Where do you want to go?
Do we listen to him for a minute?
Yeah.
Let's go to Ron.